friends. Good afternoon, dear journalists and guests. I hope that by this event we will bring this problem to the media, that we have not the procedure of reviewing the criminal cases, and there is illegal sentencing of people. There are people who are in detention facilities who have served their life sentence and the capital punishment in the country. And if we assume that a person who was convinced to life imprisonment without any right for reviewing the case, taking into account that this person is innocent, the person feels that this was illegal sentencing, and the state didn't bother, did not provide any guarantees and opportunities for fair justice. So in this case, people are not satisfied with the situation, and by starting these events, we want to provide you with examples of this illegal sentencing. So I will tell you the story about Alexander Rafalsky, who was illegally sentenced. Now we do not have the representatives of this person here in court. They are in court, but this case raised public resonance, and the film I propose to watch was built on our materials that we provided with the journalist Elena Belozerska and Alexei Yaroslavsky, and this was the first signal for the public that here in this country people served their sentence and they were illegally sentenced, and they have no opportunity, no procedure, no right from the state to review these cases. And first, I propose to watch this short film. They thrown me into the lake, and then a doctor said that I was lucky to survive. He said about the torture. He was tortured by law enforcers. And I saw Colonel Burmakov, and he said that I should do what he said. I said, I am a person. I am Rafalsky. Please remember about it. I won't be humiliated. I said that I would better die. I will never surrender. I won't do what they forced me to do. Alexander Rafalsky is behind bars for 14 years. He was sentenced for murder, and other people also were sent to prison. And it was in the Kiev Oblast. I had some money. First, they have been beating me. They didn't beat me for murder. They have been beating me for money. They asked me for the accounts about the money of my parents. They asked where the money is. So his relatives fight for his release. We have all the materials in this case to prove that this case was falsified. The lawyer of the convict say about the fake evidence, and some independent examinations were carried out, and it it has shown that there is an overlap. For example, there are all the heads, all the bodies, they do not coincide. They have the same term of decomposition. And the people So this is physics. And relatives, they addressed UNO, and they have hope for reviewing the case, but Ukrainian legal system do not envisage this. The legal system only can find those facts when the law enforcers or lawyers that were in this case, if they were convicted, if there is a guilty verdict concerning a judge or prosecutor, then the legal system provides procedures to do something. And to get to these sentences, it is very difficult because the judicial system won't allow this. So no judge or prosecutor will convict the counterparts. And the case of Alexander Rafalsky is the proof of this. They saw that these corpses, they do not coincide. So I was his, and the convict asked to have DNA tests, but no one carried out these tests. They didn't do anything. And all these corpses, they were just brought there, and everyone knows about it, but no one wants to do anything about it. So about 1,500 of people, they are sentenced for life sentence, and we should fight for these people. And these cases can be reviewed, and that's the world practice, and the evidence should be the basis for taking all the decision. If you prove the guilt of the person, you should guarantee that all those evidence in the case coincide. All the evidence are relative to the case, and they show that this crime was committed. In this condition, if they say that these proofs that are on the basis of this case, if they are fake, if they are falsified, they do not prove that what is brought in the court decision. So this is enough, more than enough, to start the reviewing procedure. In Supreme Council, they registered draft law that will allow to appeal, and this draft law 2033, it provides the basis for creating the additional mechanism in the criminal procedural law of 2012 to provide the right to those who were illegally sentenced to review the cases. This draft law and the ratification of the Rome Statute should be the basis for real results, not only discussions. And the convicts also ready to defend their rights, those people who were sentenced for life. Only 24 women were sentenced for life in Ukraine, and 18 was the first sentence. So these sentences should be reviewed. In order that this law operate, we should have 226 votes. So the relatives of Mr. Rafalsky, they try to defend their relative, and they say that they should these prosecutors and prosecutors should be convicted. So there should be also cases against Shevchuk, the second law enforcer who was in the prosecutors of Kiev Oblast. Everything goes well, but for 2 months this case doesn't move, and against Karman they do not have any action. So there is a investigation, the case of 435. So this is the case against Karman, who investigated this case, and also the mission of UNO also tries to help in this matter.
Dear friends, let me introduce speakers. They are the lawyer Oleg Levitsky. He is the manager of public reception room of Helsinki Association in Ukraine, Roman Kuybida, He is an ideologist, and in fact he worked and inspired the group of co-authors of this new bill. Tetyana Pechonchyk, head of the Center for Information on Human Rights, she has been addressing this problem for many years. Sergiy Dovhal, lawyer, journalist, Ukraina Молода newspaper. She is working on Maxim Orlov case, who was sentenced for life unlawfully, and I am from Kharkiv Human Rights Group, program coordinator Andriy Didenko. I would like to remind you that today in our country the Soviet names have been changed during decommunization. The ideology has changed. There are no histories about Ulyanov and other heroes of Soviet times in the textbooks at schools, but still the practices of lacking review of criminal cases is still in place. The situation has not changed. Here we demonstrate slides of our exhibition. I'm giving the floor to Sergiy Dovhal, the lawyer of a person who was sentenced for life. Yes, I'm a lawyer of the sentence for life, Maxim Orlov from Dnipro. He was convicted under such circumstances. We have Paramsky residential quarters in Dnipro, and the married couple of retired persons was found murdered. Why Maxim Orlov was convicted? That day, Sasha Kozlov, 13 years old, he worked in the vegetable garden of that married couple, and as soon as the murder happened, the investigators took Sasha Kozlov, 13 years old boy, and they detained him for 2 days, 48 hours. He was tortured. They tortured him because it didn't seem that such a 13-year-old boy could conduct such a murder, so they forced him to point his finger to 20 years old Maxim Orlov, and they also detained for 24 hours a 13 years old girl. Her surname is Pelipchenko, and she even didn't remember what those law enforcement officers told her to say. So the story was changed 13 times. And when the special service dog was used, but the dog found the traces to the river, but not to the premises where Maxim Orlov lived. So when the sentence was made, when the verdict was made, there was an appeal. The lawyer appealed that there is one ground that the good characteristic certificate was not taken into consideration. So Maxim Orlov is still in jail. So what we, the lawyers, do, and we open criminal proceedings against abusers of the investigator Zhulinov Victoria. Zhulinova Victoria now heads the investigative department in the district. And Boyko, the investigator, already assigned the day for interrogating this woman investigator, this female investigator, and then this investigator was transferred to the other department, and they closed the case. So the other investigator was appointed, and he said us openly that he would not investigate this case against the head of investigative department. So we are for this draft law 2033 because we see canceling the sentences of sentenced for life prisoners who were convicted unlawfully. In the case of Chupenko against Ukraine, I won the case and the sentence has been revised. Now, both the judges and the prosecutors, they are in surprise. There are no evidences of Chupenko being in the place of murder, which he was allegedly made. So there is no mechanism to review such sentences. There are plenty of such verdicts which were made by courts unlawfully. So I have arrived from Dnipro to support this bill so that our MPs vote for it. Let me give the floor to the lawyer Oleg Levitsky. He is the lawyer of Vladimir Panasenko. He has been defending this person for many years, and he will tell us very many interesting things in this case. Good afternoon. I would like to comment Andriy Didenko's speech that not our communist past brought to the system of justice lacking the procedure of efficient mending of courts' mistakes. Such procedure was in place in the Soviet times, in the Soviet country. There was such procedure in the Criminal Procedure Code, but it was excluded in 2010 from the Criminal Procedure Code. So this would be 6 years soon. So for 6 years, our country has been lacking review of cases. No prisoner in Ukraine for 6 years could hope for review of his case if he or she believes that he was illegally sentenced. So the principle of justice, which has been known to the mankind from the start of civilization, let we justify one guilty, then punish dozens of unguilty persons. The socialist justice was based on the principle that social justice cannot make mistakes because it is an ideal one. That is why everyone without exceptions. All persons were found guilty. All offenders who were accused, they were sentenced. But the review procedure worked. I remember this, and the court mistakes, they were amended. For 6 years, no convict in Ukraine has the right for rehabilitation. 2 years ago, the Revolution of Dignity revealed dozens of people who were convicted. Tymoshenko, do you remember how she was released without the procedure in place? On February 22nd, 2014, after the murders in Maidan, the Verkhovna Rada issued a resolution taking into consideration political motivation of the proceedings. The state corrective system was to release the convict Tymoshenko, and after that individual amnesty law also was passed. About 20 persons were amnested. They were Vasilkiv terrorists, lawyer Smolny, Zaporizhzhia Palomari, and Pavlichenko's father and son, and that's all. When individual amnesties would be adopted for dozens of persons sentenced for life illegally. The case of Panasenko is the most awful of those I met in my life. The case was about several persons who decided to explode the car of the top manager of the market Shuvai. The murder was ordered by Bakala person. He searched for a person to find to explode the car. Mashevsky was the performer. The performer found the person to make a bomb. They didn't see that the girl was near the car when they exploded that bomb. So perpetrator Rudy was detained in psychiatric clinic, and he accused the director of the market Shuvai. The director was got afraid. Then Mr. Rudy changed his testimonies. He told that it was the deputy director of the market. In several days he said that it was the other deputy director, Mr. Panasenko. After that, very soon, all those 5 persons, they provided true testimonies, but as Panasenko was already detained, he had been already detained, everyone who was accused, he should be sentenced. So Mr. Panasenko was sentenced for imprisonment for life. The person is not implicated in this crime at all, but he has been sentenced for life. and there is no possibility, no procedure to mend this mistake. As for me, I believe that the person who is innocent and he has been serving life imprisonment, I believe this is an absolute evil, and every citizen of our country and other countries cannot feel safe, cannot stay in peace of mind, knowing that such innocent persons serve life sentences. So I am calling to everyone when these days when we wait for MPs to vote for this bill, I call on all journalists to support us. I would like to ask one question. I know that you have arrived from the sitting of court in Rafalsky case. Is it possible in general to achieve justice through the prosecutor's office, through the court, as it is in that form as it is today? I'm a lawyer, Kolbantsev. I've been today at the court sittings in Dniprov District Court in Kiev. The court decided to cover the case even far away. The case was transferred to Tarasha court, Tarasha village court. I received all persons live in Kiev. How could it be possible to transfer the case to Tarasha village? In Tarasha, the head of the Gangadze was found, so the judges tend to hide cases in Tarasha forest like the head of Gangadze. The situation is similar in other cases. Nobody wants to address those cases. The judges try to find any pretext not to consider the cases. We have 28% of cases where verdicts, guilty verdicts were issued. I would like to support our colleagues because I address many cases with life sentences. If a person has been detained and accused, if the person stayed in the detention room for 10 days, it doesn't matter whether the person is guilty or not. The main thing for investigators is to get money for accusing this person, and we don't have neither police, nor prosecutor's office, nor courts. They are criminal bodies. They are criminal businesses because freedom of a person means huge money. Why our law enforcement officers have the largest villas and the largest amounts of money on their bank accounts? Because freedom costs huge money. So our exhibition photo gallery is dedicated to the illegally sentenced persons. I would like to turn your attention to Igor Volkodav case. This case is similar to Alexander Rafalsky case because Rafalsky, they tried to meet a maniac from Rafalsky. Rafalsky didn't sell any flats as he was accused, and Mr. Volkodov, he is imprisoned as an implicated in black sales of apartments when hundreds of pensioners' flats were sold on the black market because those guys they murdered lonely pensioners. Those persons, they were seen alive who of murders, of whose murders Mr. Volkodov is sentenced about. He has no implication to those crimes. He was a businessman who sell cars. He was told, give us money, give us cars, because you are a businessman. Those persons who were guilty, they were provided money by those murderers. The surname Volkodov, it was disliked by the law enforcement officers, and despite staying for many years in jail, Mr. Volkodov, like Mr. Rafalsky, he has not degraded. He still remains a human being in an adequate mental state, and keeps human values. So, like in the case of Rafalsky, nobody wants to consider Volkodov's case. This case has stayed for 1 year and a half in Dniprovsky court, in Darnitsky district court, the case of Zinchenko, his alleged accomplice. We made a request to join these two cases of Zinchenko and Volkodov. They refused us. They are even afraid of those cases. The worst scene is when some negative facts appear in mass media. Then nobody can refute these allegations. So the MPs should pass the Bill 2033. Many MPs were with us in Maidan, and to seek from there are very many persons sentenced illegally in our prisons. A 31-year-old champion, boxing champion, he was twice world champion. He was guilty as if in alleged murder of two persons. It was just a revenge for he quitted relations with one girl he had a personal affair with one girl, so her mother made an act of revenge. So the law enforcement officers arrested him and told him that he was forced to sign some guilty testimonies via tortures. Is it possible to fire a person so that the law enforcement officers did the same thing as in the case of Rafalsky? Law enforcement officers brought some corpse and fired that corpse, and they the corpses were found 125 centimeters deep under the ground. It is impossible to fire a person at such temperature, which is possible at 2 meters underground, and also being twice a champion, a boxing champion, he allegedly
So he killed Markov and buried him, and Shabayev he took outside city and dropped her into the lake. So this is not true, and there were 3 different skulls, 3 different bodies of these women. So these cases, they were all falsified. And if we consider any case, my colleagues told you about everywhere where there were violations, and there will be thousands of violations in these cases. But these judges, they just take those decisions that they were asked to take. And what we ask from the deputies, you should carry out your duties, you should pay a debt to society, to those people who now are illegally detained. So Euphrates Tymoshenko and others, we thank you for this, but you should adopt the law in order to release those who were illegally detained. Now I give the floor to Tetyana Kuybida. He was the developer of this legislative initiative in the working group Sovereign Animation package of reforms, and during many months they developed and discussed and debated the provisions of this law. So please tell us about the activity. Maybe I will tell you about what will happen, that was done. So one step that remains to launch the review mechanism. This is to vote on this draft law that was developed and introduced into the parliament 1 year ago, and it awaits for the revision, and it is prepared for the second reading. So there should be one voting in order to introduce this law. We are not speaking about return to the proceedings that were before, because this was not the effective mechanism. It depended mostly on the initiatives of the prosecutor's office, not on those who were convicted and were forced to turn to the prosecutor. So those person who was convicted or his lawyers should have the right to appeal to the courts, and there are clearly defined grounds in what cases these people can address. So this is based on practice. We have photos of these convicts, and This is the experience of illegal sentencing when they say white for black and black for white. And there are many evidence that are not taken into the account. They are not even mentioned in the decision of the court. And there are many cases like this. And the legal system is directed at convicting the people. And about 100% of guilty verdicts is the proof of this. The deputies expressed concern, two concerns. And firstly, this is Savchenko law, and they are criticized for this, that many were released sooner that they had. They should have served their full sentence, and this parallel is not right, because Savchenko law envisaged the automatic release of the person after the calculation of the time that the person spent in pre-trial facility, and that they calculated 1 day in detention pre-trial facility for 1 day of imprisonment. So we are not speaking about automatic release. We are speaking about the review of the case. The second argument is very important. People's deputies, they have doubts whether this legal system, that the system is ready to correct its own faults. Of course, the draft law envisages that the case will be reviewed by different courts that made convictions, but this is not a clear guarantee. The changes in the constitution that are now adopted and the new reading of the law on the judges and the legal system that should be introduced in September, we see that we have a chance, the chance of creating new Supreme Court, and in spring next year this will work, and the decision that the courts of appeal will take on the ground of this draft law, if it will be introduced, they will be under the control of the new Supreme Court, and this gives the opportunity to use the argument whether this legal system that exists, whether it is able to correct its own faults. And the new Supreme Court, maybe this is one of the indicators whether it is different from acting system and is able to correct those mistakes, not even mistakes. This is illegality. These are abuses and violations of prosecutors and judges who didn't react to these violations but took them as a basis to create a guilty verdict. So that's why the preconditions that raised concerns, they are lifted now, and there is an opportunity to introduce this mechanism. It doesn't mean that this mechanism shows its results at once, because firstly, we should gather the documents in order to address to the court. We should wait for reviewing the case, and if this review is not satisfying, there is also opportunity to appeal to the Supreme Court. I hope this will be the new Supreme Court, and this faults are going to be corrected in a year, and this will be clear progress. Thank you. And now, starting from today in the Parliament, there will be an exhibition that will be dedicated to the 8 stories of those people who were illegally sentenced. Valishka, Suslov, they also were sentenced for life. So this is a drop in the sea of those decisions of courts that are illegal and that should be reviewed. And it is not only about those who were sentenced for life, but also about many others who serve their sentences now, and they do not have any procedure to review their cases. This exhibition appeared thanks to the efforts of experts of the Center of Information about Human Rights. Tetyana Pechonchyk heads the center, and please, she is going to tell us about this exhibition, about its content and how it appeared. Good afternoon. I will be brief because this is the end of press conference. That's why I'm going to tell you briefly that this exhibition, photo exhibition, is one of the steps of despair, because many civil society organizations and advocates and relatives of those who were illegally sentenced, we tried to draw the attention of the public to this problem. And the cynicism is that in Ukraine, many people served their sentences. They were sentenced illegally. And if we're speaking about sentencing for life, those people who were sentenced for life, these people, they do not have a chance to be released. And that's why not only them are punished, but also their families. Because for them, all the sense of their life is reduced to the fight with the system in order to provide their relatives with a chance to be their cases reviewed by judges, not those judges and prosecutors and not those law enforcers who were involved in faking these cases, but other people who didn't take part in these processes. And here it is very important that this struggle lasts for many years, and I remember many people from 2006. For 10 years I know these people, and there are many public meetings and also meetings with the ombudsman and the representatives of UNO, with parliament. These are hundreds of meetings, hundreds of strikes, photo flash mobs in the media, social media, and different broadcasts, but it didn't lead to some sensible result, and that's why we decided to create such a photo exhibition that you could see in your screen. And also there are slides from this exhibition, and we represented this exhibition in June near the Supreme Council, and now this exhibition, starting from tomorrow, this exhibition will be presented in the parliament, where the people's deputies can look these people in the face, and they can see the information about them, these people who were illegally detained and sentenced, and Mr. Pernasenko and Rafalsky cases, and many other people's cases. And I would like to draw your attention that for me, there was a photo of Alexander Rashipkov was very speaking. So if you look at the photo of this person, his ears were parts of his ears were cut off because they wanted him to tell that he committed some crime that he didn't commit. And this picture was made by Mr. Kupriyan. Also, he created other photos, and also he made the project that is called those who were tortured, about the people who were tortured by the system in order to get evidence about the crimes they didn't commit. So these photos also are included in this exhibition. And in this exhibition, we draw the attention to those people who went through the torture, and they were forced to testify against themselves, and those people who were sentenced to life imprisonment without participation of lawyers, and also based on fake evidence or without any evidence, when they just forced them to testify against themselves. So we ask to provide these people with a chance in order to review these cases by the court, and that should be, we hope that this will be a fair trial, and due to this, these people will be released. And this exhibition will last for a week in the Supreme Council of Ukraine, and I hope that those who have accreditation cards will be able to visit this exhibition. And also we provided the materials to show the information about this exhibition, about the draft laws, and you can get this information. And in the whole, we also have here the relatives of those who were legally sentenced. There is Ms. Rafalska, mother of Rafalsky, and other people with whom I hope the journalists will be able to communicate after this press conference is over. Thank you. And lastly, about the despair, insider information that we got from different sources. We are speaking about the fact that those who were sentenced, they believe that they are illegally sentenced. They say that they will have one-day hunger strike to support the draft law 2033, and also there are complaints from those who were sentenced that the people who work in the detention facilities do not react to their requests and claims, and they cannot send letters from these institutions. And we stressed that this is a problem, and we have time for journalist requests. Please, you may ask your questions.
Ukraine Fact, подія тижня, journalist Lariokov. Dear civil rights activists, can you tell us what is the most influential factor, what is the major factor of influence on rulings of courts? Is there some rules of the game by call, as you know, as it was previously? We don't have system, we have just a system of punishments where a person should be captured, tortured, and the case then closed. If a person is detained, you know, there are many people sentenced for life who just were deprived of their business and money. So our court system is intended on taking money from people, and the persons who are not guilty, they serve prison sentences. Their firms, companies were eaten up and money also seized. For many years, we have less than 1% verdicts, positive verdicts. If a person is accused, she or he will be sentenced. The system so the judge doesn't want to issue non-guilty verdicts, because then a prosecutor will be punished for the wrong case, and the prosecutor and the judge, they are usually friends, colleagues. That is why the system works as follows: just to torture a person and to punish a person. That's all. Well, the last question, please. Head of NGO movement Rafalska Tamara, public force NGO. We made many attempts, held many news conferences, many pickets we held. On May 15-16, we picketed Verkhovna Rada and wrote request to Andriy Volodymyrovich. The families of persons who were illegally sentenced ask to you to submit the Bill 2033 for voting. When it is put for voting, we ask you to organize adoption of this bill. Otherwise, our relatives who have been sentenced illegally, they would start a hunger strike, and we will go to international courts and the international mass media. And the families of those illegally imprisoned persons, they will be on a hunger strike near the building of the Verkhovna Rada. Then you will not be able to eat with clean and we provided this request to the person close to Mr. Parubi, to his assistant, but we have not received any response. So starting with tomorrow, we start a hunger strike near the building of the Verkhovna Rada, because nobody responded to our requests, to our statements, to our pickets. Ukraine moves forward, so radical steps should be made to clean the system from corrupt officers. Thank you. We start a hunger strike and seek your support. I support the words of Tamara Rafalska. I join her and ask you to adopt the Law 2033A, which will provide the opportunity to revise the case of Volkodov Igor. Thank you for attention to everyone. I hope that people's deputies will hear us. Thank you.
Шановні колеги, наступна подія. Полковник Андрій